Thank you for joining us for this Miss Pursuit podcast episode. Today, we are going to kind of recap the year that we have had so far, this first season of Miss Pursuit. So Carly and Katherine of Miss Pursuit are joining me, and we're going to kind of go over some of our favorite episodes that have inspired or encouraged us. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the future of Miss Pursuit over this next season and give you some highlights and some things to expect and look forward to. All right, everybody, thank you for joining this episode of Miss Pursuit. This is an exciting episode. I've got Carly and Katherine on here with me from Miss Pursuit, actually, and we are going to be kind of wrapping up season 1 and talking about some of the exciting women that we have had, women and men, actually, that we've had on the podcast. And so, ladies, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having us, but thank you so much for hosting the Miss Pursuit podcast over the last year. Amy, you have been truly inspirational on the podcast, off the podcast, and having you just pull women's stories out of them has been invaluable. I owe you a great deal, and I love you so much. Thank you for all your help over the last year.
Oh, Carly, you're going to make me cry.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't know I was going to start off with a big bang. But really, I mean, you are there are just no word, too many words or no words to really just describe the respect that I have for you. And, this is kind of a sad day, but it is also a great day because I know that you want to really focus on Her Wild Outdoors, which is an amazing podcast that everyone should subscribe to and download and listen. And this is good. This has been the end of a little era and the beginning of a new for everyone. So I'm excited to be here, and I will try my hardest not to cry throughout the entire thing.
It changes. You and I both have had a huge amount of respect for each other over the past year and a half since we first talked and met over the phone. And then, I don't know, it kind of just meeting in person and hanging out with both you and Katherine just solidified everything that I already knew in my heart with who you guys are and your passions. And it made for such, I don't know, it just kind of solidified it, anchored it in that we're soulmates in this outdoor community.
I know you have become just such a dear friend and mentor and so many things, Amy. I just love you and respect you so much. You know that.
I do. And so.
Okay, I said I wasn't going to cry anymore, and here I go all emotional. See, this is where any man who's listening to this is going to be like, oh, God, where these women go crying.
But it's kind of bringing a season to a close and bringing a season to, it's not a bad thing at all. It's such a fun thing to kind of look back on everything that we've done and all of the conversations and everything like that. And then it kind of spurs you on for that next season, for what's coming next. And Miss Pursuit has had such an amazing year between the podcast and the blog and the website and the women that have been involved that I can only imagine what you guys are going to be doing in the next year and knowing who's coming on board. And it's just, I can't wait to follow you guys and to cheer you on.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I am excited. So let me just start this. So Amy reached out. She said, let's do the, wrap up podcast. Y'all tell me kind of your top favorite episodes. So it was interesting and fun to go back and look through and listen. And, I kind of had a couple, they're all great, but I kind of had a few that I was like, to go back and listen again.
Right.
Is refreshing, and you forget so much. And anyway, so it was a fun to just kind of sit down for a couple of hours is what I did, and just kind of re-listen to a lot of them, because I wanted to make sure I, really kind of was thoughtful in which ones kind of kept my, attention and really inspired me is maybe the word, but so this should be a fun little chit chat between us three.
Yeah. And Katherine, you have come in to Miss Pursuit in a totally different way as a non-hunter, right?
Right.
And so being able to listen to the podcast and be a part of Miss Pursuit and hear stories and read stories and be on that side of it, when we were able to meet last month, a month and a half ago now, I was so inspired by how this has inspired you to become more involved.
Yeah, when Carly and I connected on Miss Pursuit, when she told me about Miss Pursuit, I was kind of in on it from the beginning. I was like, Carly, I think this is awesome. That she started it as a way to connect with her husband. My husband and I are also in marriage ministry. And so I grabbed hold of that. I just loved that. And that she wanted to start it as a way, she started hunting as a way to be with her husband. And I just really loved that. So knew it was going to take off because Carly's amazing. And so I was like, when you're ready to do more with this, I want to be a part of it. Let me know. Even though as a non-hunter, it's not something I have been specifically interested in, but I like when you're ready to go with this, I want to be a part of it. I want to help you. I want to help you build the brand and all of that. And so I came on as the managing editor last year, right about a year ago. And I have just loved getting to know all of our writers, Amy, getting to know you through the podcast. And I just love getting to tell the stories of these girls and Carly's story and your story. And I the podcast is just really another avenue for getting to tell these stories. Mm-hmm. And I was going through and listening to the podcast. I had a trip to Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, and hunting has not been part of our family. But my son was kind of listening, and I could tell he was a little bit interested. And he was like, "Mom, are you going to go hunting?"
I love that.
So we got to talk about that and what that means. And yes, we're going to try and go hunting this year. Well, why are you going to go hunting? And I got to tell him, it's about helping provide food for our family, and just really getting to tell him about that story and what that means. And I think he's excited too to kind of see where that goes.
It has been, I would say it has been life altering for our family once our kids got into it with us. It kind of moved from just my husband hunting and it being more of a dividing line of his time and our time as a family, to when I joined in and it became something that he and I did together, to then something we do as a family. And so it doesn't really seem like much of a dividing thing anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah. My husband has he's gained interest in this as well. And so our Valentine's gifts to each other were our hunting licenses this year. So he's excited for you.
That's awesome. That, I don't know. I feel like it's such a way of bringing people together. And I love that part. And I love whether you're doing it as a single person and you're finding a community to do that with, or you are doing it with your family. I just think it's a way that, I don't know, we've seen it through Miss Pursuit and the relationships that we've made with men and women that have become a part of this. And so, I don't know, I'm excited to see where you're going too. And I can't wait to hear about your first hunt. And and I'm rooting you on.
Thank you.
From here. But let's step back because I want to fit in as much as we can into this podcast. So, Carly, I want to start with you. You came up with 2 or 3 kind of podcasts that stood out to you that either were relatable or inspirational. And so give us just a little bit of what your favorite parts were this year.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was Jared Larson with Onyx. And, you know, where I wouldn't say where I struggle, but I'm not a public land hunter. We have our lease. We don't need to use Onyx as much as most people will have the use for it.
Yeah.
We do use it sometimes. However, the Onyx podcast I found very interesting because one, you can use Onyx every different way. And this is not a sponsor pitch. This is nothing like that.
Yeah.
You can use it in so many ways. And our team, I swear, you start looking back at our posts and these women use Onyx. Like they're like, okay, my essential gear that you have to have, Onyx, this, that. And I think there hasn't been just a ton of technology brought into the outdoors. I definitely know there, some very awesome optics and this and that, that does use technology. However, I feel like Onyx bridged that and they made technology essential for people who spend time outdoors.
Right.
And I found that cool that a brand came from nothing and built that. And one of the ways that they also did it was through valuable relationship building. I think people forget the value of what relationships can do and the county and state and national level of partnerships that they have built, I think is a really good reminder for people and small brands and big brands that is, it just has to happen. And that's how you can have a successful life. I know I'm kind of comparing Onyx to us, but how did we build, a friendship? And it was through valuable relationships and we got to know each other. And that's how you and I and all of us start succeeding. Yeah. I don't know. They saw a need and they filled it. And I think that is a business plan and things that we can just kind of all
pull from
use in our everyday life.
No, I agree. I loved that conversation. I think I've talked a lot about them in podcasts that I've either hosted or been a part of or invited to. And it being a public land hunter or a private land hunter, the ability to use that for safety, to be able to use it for confidence with where you are, hearing their background story of how they got started. That in itself was, it just makes you want to support those businesses when you hear that background of why they got started, why they saw the need was important. And so, it was a great conversation with Jared. I loved it.
Another one of mine that I really loved was Sarah Honadell.
Yes.
And she is at Waddy Sarah. And I swear, every time I type in her handle, I'm always like, what is this? Like, why? You know? And so kind of right there, I believe at the beginning, but you basically said the same thing. You're like, your handle is at Waddy Sarah. What the heck is that? And so that was like I was like, anyways, I just love that because, she is so involved. I know with Huntress View. And, I was part of the Huntress View team and Sarah just has such a presence there and leadership role. And so I've kind of watched her throughout my journey of getting into the outdoors and connecting with women groups. And so it was fun to kind of learn about her more on a personal level. Let me see. I
think we talked on her podcast a lot about how we in the outdoors, especially as women, that it's not a competition, right? That it's that we are here to support each other. And
absolutely.
And I think that was something I took away from having conversations with her on and off the podcast, is just the ability to cheer each other on, even if we're on different platforms or we have, if you've got a different sponsor or if you use different equipment, whatever it is, we're still cheering each other on in the capacity of, we are women in the outdoors and we don't want people to fail. We want you to be successful in your ventures and your hunts and that kind of thing.
Yes. And she just was relatable.
Yeah.
She was a non-hunter. She had a boyfriend that started hunting. Then she got it, and that's my story.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women's stories, unfortunately, we're usually not just hunters, right? We have a lot of us have a man.
It's true.
Who takes us for the first time, or we have a boyfriend, or hopefully, a dad or someone when we're younger. But if we don't have that, it's a lot of times the boyfriend.
It's true.
And I just love those stories because that's mine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So clearly, I think we have to discuss the Just Kind of Mine podcast.
Yes.
Of you talking about the terminology of huntress. Mm-hmm. I mean, one, I just love controversial stuff.
Yes.
And that podcast, that blog post that she did, the social media, posts that have come along with the podcast and blog have had so much discussion. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to beat a dead horse because I think that discussion can continue or we can let that lie.
Yeah.
However, I think the discussion around the terminology huntress is important.
Yes.
For everyone. And I love Jess. She's young and got her first whitetail this year, and she's an incredible rider.
Yeah.
She is very special. I'm excited to just kind of watch her journey just because she's just so freaking cool. Like, I look at her and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're a young girl, and man, she can do anything. She's really great.
Well, and also she's relatable, right? She's not the, I think she's beautiful, but she will tell you in her own words that her dad calls her his linebacker. And so I think that when people think of women in the outdoors community and women who are spokesmodels and all of that, she doesn't fit that mold. And 95% of us don't fit that mold. And so it's refreshing to hear from a woman, and a young woman especially, about how she saw a need for an example of women out there who don't fit that very, very strict mold of what you see out there. And I respect the hell out of that.
I know. I agree. And I just love her. I want to talk my opinion maybe about hunter versus huntress.
Bring it. Yes.
But I don't know if it matters, because we all, we all have an opinion and it matters, but does it really? Like, you do you, I'll do me.
Yeah. I think it does matter when it is brought into a negative light, when it is used negatively. And I think that it does matter and it should be brought up. And I think that it should be brought to light and condemned when it's used negatively. And,
Amy, this is where, okay, so Instagram influencers and huntresses, we'll say that in air quotes.
Yes.
Get such a bad rap. Okay. So women, people who make money off of Instagram.
There you go.
Why is that a bad thing? I don't understand. And I know, listen, they're bad cops, they're bad teachers, they're bad whatever. But why are people so called out, especially women?
Yeah.
Who
make money off of the outdoor community. Yeah.
Why? Like, you can have a magazine. So if XYZ Huntress had a magazine and she was selling ads in her magazine, a printed magazine that you'd go to Barnes and Noble or have dropped off in your mailbox, and there were advertisements in there, no one would think anything about it.
Right.
Why, if I charge $200 for a brand to be in the middle of my posts, are they just ripped to shreds?
So I think there's a difference. And I think that this is where the conversation needs to lie. That there's a difference between real women who have sponsorships or who give, who are paid to put ads in there. I think that there's a difference between real women, real hunters who do that. And it goes for men and women. Like, I would call out a man in a heartbeat just because of this as well. I think there's a difference between real hunters who are getting paid to do this and people that you look on their Instagram pages and you see a whole bunch of sunset pictures and you see a whole lot of bikini pictures, or you see a whole lot of selfies without a whole lot of content of them hunting, and they are being used as spokespeople for products that I don't really see proof of them using it. Does that make sense?
But who are we to decide what's real? Who are we to say XYZ is not the real deal? She may be different. She may, I don't know, fish in a swimsuit, which a lot of the time on Instagram, I'm sorry, I fish. I've, been whatever, saltwater fishing, whatever, and I am in my swimsuit, and you're going to see a picture of me in my swimsuit.
Yeah.
But why is that okay? And who are we to decide what's real and what's not real? Because to that girl, maybe she is confident, or maybe she only fishes. I don't know. I just have a hard time. I feel like it is judgmental of us to decide what is real.
I think that the proof's in the pudding. I think if you've got a girl who goes out there and has been sunbathing all day, holds up a rod and reel with a fish that she didn't catch, and then she puts it on Instagram, or she stepped in to take a picture with a rod and reel but has never fished a day in her life, I think those are the people that make the women who are really doing the work look bad. I think that
who are these women?
Who are these women?
And this is, will someone send me private DM or an email of who are these women?
Yeah.
Like, I'm honestly, this is like sincere in my heart. Like, there are a couple that I kind of think of in my head. Maybe I just don't follow them, or maybe when I see it, I just scroll and move on.
Yeah.
But literally, like, I would love privately to see 1, 2, 5 examples of like who these are, because I guess maybe I just live in my little stupid bubble and I don't like you. I don't follow you because your shit sucks. I don't know.
I can send you a couple. I can send you a couple, and I'll do it privately. I don't necessarily want to call them out on air.
No.
because that defeats the purpose of why we are here. I just think that there are companies that I have called out in the past year who have utilized models instead of real hunters to promote their hunting equipment. And so I see pictures of women holding a bow without an arrow in it. Or I see someone holding a bow and pulling back, pretending to pull back, but they don't have a release in their hand. And it's because they're using, and I did follow up and find out that they paid models to use the equipment instead of real hunters. And so I see that content on there. And it infuriates me because they're using product wrong. They're placing product where cleavage is on purpose. They're using women who have no idea what the heck they're even there for. And so I'm going to scroll right past. I'm not going to give attention to that. And I'm not going to buy their product because honestly, if they can't use real women who hunt in their photos and not degrade them in those photos and use them for that reason like that, I think that I've called them out, and I've called the women who have put themselves into that situation out to an extent, because as a model coming in, you're doing your job. If you are a hunter coming in and you are stripping down on purpose to sell sex versus the product, then I don't think that, me personally, I would not do that. But it only goes to the fact of I would only call somebody out in my head or personally or scroll on past if I know for a fact that this woman is being sponsored by a whole bunch of hunting businesses and claiming to be the hunter that she is, yet she's never killed an animal or she's never fished for real. Like that wasn't her catch. She stole somebody else's fish and posed with it to claim that she's a fisherman. I just don't think that that's honest, and it doesn't bring me to respect her.
But I think it's our job to call out brands.
100%.
More so than it is to call out the women.
100%.
That's their job.
Yes, 100%.
But I think it is our job as a hunting and outdoors community to call out and say, and I'm going to say XYZ ammo brand or XYZ fishing rod, to say, hey, I love your rods. Let me do a post for you.
Yes. I
know how to use it. I've been using them for years. I'll take great quality photos for you, and I'll speak from the heart. So don't use her.
Yeah.
And I think it's our job to call out brands.
Agreed. Yes.
Because you also can't I don't know, there are Hooters girls and there are strippers and that's their thing. It doesn't have to be mine, but I can't call, I don't know. It's just, and what about ads? Like, do you think everyone who does a Pepsi commercial drinks Pepsi?
Nope.
Do you think Kylie Jenner drinks Pepsi?
Probably not.
She probably drinks Coke because Coke is better.
Yeah.
But, we allow it other places, but we don't, we
require authenticity.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing or maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If I went back a couple of years, a couple of Olympics, and we were watching the Olympics as a family with my young children when they were smaller, and a Carl's Jr. commercial came on. And it was pretty much a sex ad, right? When they had those going on during the time. And so we sat there watching the Olympics for 10 minutes and turned it off because 6 commercials came back to back to back to back with boobs everywhere and, ketchup and mayonnaise and mustard dripping down cleavage. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And I don't,
and she's
not
Olympians,
swallowing that food.
I know, all those Olympians are eating Carl's Jr. between all of their sets.
Right?
That's how they have those rockin' bods.
Oh my gosh. It's ridiculous. And it did make me, seeing those, it made me not want to support that company. It made me furious personally to take a family situation and turn it into that. And I made a whole post about it and it was ridiculous. But you are right in that there's some things that we allow to go for them to get away with it, and we allow others, we hold them at a stricter.
Okay, so I would like to, we know how I feel about Hunter versus Huntress, but I would also love to know Katherine's favorite podcasts and which ones made an impression on her over the last year.
Yes.
I love just listening to you guys go back and forth. Learned so much just from hearing your conversation, and it's just awesome. I love getting to be a part of it. So, my favorite over the last year, probably does not come as a surprise to anyone, are the ones, the moms that you have. Just because, I have a 6-year-old son and a 1-year-old son. And so my holdup about not getting out over the last year has been, I have an excuse of, I have a baby, I can't get out. And so I am really inspired, in particular by Becca Garris, by Susie Busta, and Chelsea Hansler. She has older kids. But I loved hearing their stories about getting out in the open, getting outdoors with their kids. And as even as little babies, and Susie takes her 1-year-old and goes ice fishing. And I'm amazed by that, because I need to be stuck indoors. I can't do anything. I can't go. So I just loved hearing how each of those women did that.
I think that whether you're hunting with kids or you're stepping outside of a certain comfort zone, whatever it is, hearing another woman's story of how they themselves stepped out of it kind of gives you that confidence that, maybe I can do that. Maybe,
Right.
Maybe hearing their story pushes you that extra step outside. And I think that's the benefit of hearing women's stories anyways, because they're inspiring, they're encouraging, and you can grow just by listening to them.
Absolutely. And I think too, they don't shy away from the difficulty of it, right? Becca talks about, in her stories daily, just about how hard it is to get up early in the morning and get dressed, get Isabella dressed, and getting everybody ready. And then, she's out for maybe an hour and that's it. And then she's, and then it's getting everybody undressed from their hunting gear in the car and getting out. But I love how she is not afraid to do that. She's not afraid to take her. She knows that she's probably going to be loud, and it's going to be it's going to be hard to find anything, to catch the rabbits and
right.
And she's kind of, she has found ways around that with giving her a lollipop, to try and keep her. But I also love how she has taught her daughter to just love the outdoors. I know she's excited, every time she gets to go out with her mom, and just the relationship and the bond that she has formed with her daughter over, through spending that time with her.
Yes.
And I just love seeing that. And I loved hearing her talk about that on the podcast.
I think it shows women who take their kids out that early, that young, and there are a lot of them out there. Becca is a great example. There are so many women that I'm seeing now that have stepped up to that plate. And I think that it goes back to, there's a sense of protection and nurturing that we have for our kids when they're young. And there comes a point in everybody's life as a parent to kind of take the reins off and say, they can do more than I think that they can. They are stronger than I think that they are. They're able to do more than I think that they can do. And I'm surprised every single day by the things that my kids have been able to do. And it's my responsibility to take a step back and let them. Right?
Right.
It's my responsibility to give them tools that they can use, but then actually allow them to use them. Whether it's learning how to be quiet, learning how to walk in the woods, learning how to listen, how to watch, or just everyday life of being in school and navigating, as mine are preteens and almost a teenager, navigating relationships on their own. And so it is a constant battle that I have within of letting go.
Right. I think, that's a little bit of what Kim Bryant wrote about last week. Right. She's at the opposite end of the spectrum, right? She's got teenagers. And so she's ready to say, okay, here's what I've taught you. Now you go out and do it. And my dad always used to say, you're teaching me what you're able to handle. And so it's just a really have I prepared you? Are you ready for this? Can we do this again? And so giving them a little bit extra responsibility over time and each time. And like what Kim wrote about last week of, okay, they're ready to do this. They're ready to go out on their own. And I can allow them the freedom to go and hunt by themselves.
Yeah. It's those little lessons along the way that aren't just for them, they're for us. They're like the little lesson of me letting go of a hand as they're teetering off is teaching me later to let them take the keys to the car. Like those little lessons are for me as well to say, they won't always be mine. I need to be practicing letting go with the little things so that when the big things come up, I don't hold them back. And so watching my two harvest deer in the past 2 years has been exciting, but it has also been a lesson of letting go. So hearing these stories from Becca and Chelsea and Susie and Kim, especially because her kids are just slightly older than mine, learning that art of letting go and knowing just how much encouragement and push to give them, but also be that sounding board and that soft place to land when mistakes are made and lessons have to be learned.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm totally inspired by Chelsea, that, she lives off the grid and in this small cabin and she doesn't, she got her refrigerator last week.
It's the little things.
All she does, she hasn't been able to build her garden, but we're getting ready. We started our seedlings this week. From Chelsea, I have always been very into handcrafted items. So I have quilted. For a period of time, I milled my own wheat. I go back to that every now and then. I have a grain mill, and so I mill my own flour. This last year, I picked up sourdough starter and making sourdough bread and sourdough biscuits. And just going back to sewing and just some of those basic things, those basic skills. And it was through watching Chelsea and hearing her story with her art and everything of going, okay, yeah, I can do this. And maybe it's not going to go great, but I will learn from that and it will help me for the next time. And so seeing her story or reading her story about, getting started with her art and how she's allowed it to kind of teach her and how she tells other people's stories through their photos and getting to repaint them. I just love that. And I am continually inspired by all that she does.
I think it's neat. The homesteading thing on its own is remarkable to me. The bravery it takes. I like to boast that I'm a black thumb gardener, and some of my stuff dies and some of it lives. And sometimes I feel like I have no control over it whatsoever. And so watching people from Chelsea and her garden that she had last year especially was beautiful. But there are so many people that are able to do these things that inspire me to at least give it a try. And from their stories, knowing that was kind of how they got started, was just giving it a try, and seeing small failures not as failures, but as lessons to come back bigger and stronger the next year.
Right. And like I said, I just am so inspired by her. It has encouraged me to go back to some of those basic things that I have learned over time. The things that I learned from my mother and my grandmother, to instill in my own family too.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I agree. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's what I pulled a lot of that from Susie's podcast too, where she talked about her grandmother, and grandmother got out and she heard the story, and she watched her grandmother, get out, each day, and she'd go out by herself, and she wasn't afraid to. And I just think that's so great that she had women, a legacy of women, behind her, that she can draw from those experiences, and as she continues to get out and learn every day too.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that. I think that it's a way of connecting us with the generations from the past. And I don't know, I take it to heart, and I take it very seriously, connecting with my great grandmother that I never met, but there's something that has passed down through our generations that connects us. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, I have a couple that were my favorite. Not necessarily, well, I have enjoyed every single conversation that I've had with people. I don't want that to come across different, but I've had some very inspiring conversations to me, specifically, that either pushed me a little bit further into conservation and understanding the world that we live in and the things that we need to take seriously and take part in, but also just educating myself through these conversations. And one of those was Mark from Vortex. We had a conversation, and the biggest takeaway that I took from that conversation was the family values that Vortex started with, and how it has created such an amazing company that still has that same family value at the platform, at the very base of it, the foundation of it. And it creates the company that's there today that's so reliable. And so hearing those details and those stories about how it started as a bird watching company, like developing glass for bird watchers, and what it has become today, that really stood pretty high in my respect for a company that is in our community right now.
I think it's great when you have brands that start off and have a significant story that people connect with. I think that's so important.
Yeah,
for building that brand and allowing people to see where you come from.
Yeah. And the standard that they stand by is so high that it's reliable, and it's, that they're going to take care of you, and it's lifetime warranted and all of their stuff. It's pretty cool to just to hear the details behind those companies. It just takes it to a different level of respect. And Carla, you set that up, and I appreciated that because it was a company that I have always wanted to know more about. And so when I finally got them on the phone, it was like, okay, tell me all the juicy details.
And it's so weird because sometimes, and here this goes back to a little bit of the sponsorship talk. I was talking to Vortex and I thought, we use Vortex, love Vortex, Onyx, there are these brands. And you still have to be so careful because I feel like, oh, we've mentioned Vortex. Oh, we've mentioned Onyx. People are going to automatically think like, oh, we must be getting paid, and it's like, no, they're just badass brands that we fell in love with because we listened to their story and we started it as, hey, I want some money to advertise. And that's not what happened. There was no money and we fell in love and we heard their story. So I think I think it's important to know that, there are some really good brands out there that, and I think that is a benefit of Instagram influencers and stuff is, there are some cool brands that is fun to share.
Yes. And you're going to hear about the negative ones, right? You're going to hear, don't go to this company. Don't utilize this. It does not work. But it's those real, if I brought up scopes or binoculars at all, I can promise you that Vortex would be top of the list in suggestions. And it has to do with the quality of glass, but it has so much to do with customer care.
Not awesome. Yeah. Will got a pair of Vortex binoculars, I think I want to say 2 seasons ago. And man, oh my gosh. Yeah. Glassing with it. I'm always like, give me your binoculars.
Right.
Give me yours.
Oh yeah.
They are very nice. But again, budget friendly for the quality.
Yes.
That you get.
Yeah.
Man, dude, looking through his binoculars, he's like, yeah, that's, that's an 8 point. That's a 10 point. I'm like, how far away is that? Probably about a mile, maybe a mile and a half. I'm like, no freaking way. His binoculars are incredible. But
They are. That was a cool podcast. I really enjoyed hearing. Mark did a great job of teaching in that podcast because I was like, hey, there are going to be, including myself, people that listen to this who don't know the science behind all of this. And they might not understand the lingo if you are speaking an expert lingo. And he did a great job, I think, of having a conversation that could meet both a new person in our community and one that has an expert maybe level of knowledge. And so he did a great job of meeting both levels in that podcast. And I learned a tremendous amount of information.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. Okay, the other one that really stood out was Sammy Holland. Because we had a conversation right at the time that New Zealand was having the battle over tar.
Yep.
And I think that was a turning point for me for noticing at that point in time some of the ways that our world is fighting against hunters, and it became personal in that podcast. And I think it was influential to me. I think it was informational to a lot of people of what was going on at the time. I think Blood Origins had done a lot of great things for that conversation. And we did, Miss Pursuit. I think that there was just a lot of information going out there that we across the world needed to hear about, because just because it happens a whole world away from us doesn't mean that it isn't going to impact us, isn't going to
Everything.
mean it. Yes. Nope. The precedent that it's setting, the government involvement, so that that one stood out to me. And the last one that I'm going to bring up really quick is Georgia Pellegrini, and having a conversation.
Not the cutest darn thing?
She is. And we were trying to help her in that moment for raising money for her show on PBS. And it came to fruition. And it was just exciting to see her heart for educating kids and families free on national public television, on homesteading, Katherine, on hunting, on cooking your wild game, and bringing it all together in a way that you can turn on public television and be a part of it. It was a really great conversation.
Yeah, she just has really made a name for herself in such a good way.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that has really taken the reins and grown a brand that adds value to all of us. So I really respect her, and she's been fun to watch her journey.
It's true. It's so true. And, all of the ones that we haven't brought up, each one has had a place in my heart for either inspiring or encouraging or educating me in some form or fashion.
Absolutely. This last year has just been so freaking awesome. I mean, seriously, with COVID and just 2020, and we all have just grown and exceeded everything.
Yeah.
In a year that, a global pandemic and everyone is shut down and but I think, what I saw in 2020 really was people moving outdoors.
Yes.
We're shoved inside in a box.
Yep.
And what people did was move outside. And that forced a lot of families to have to do a few things that they maybe normally wouldn't have done in the outdoors. And I think that was, as much as 2020 sucked, it also really, as far as outdoorsmen and future outdoorsmen and future what we can encourage families to do was really great thing.
I agree. I think that we saw the world kind of shut down, but to me, I feel like it opened up and created a safe place for us to find connection with each other as families or as fellow hunters. Having these conversations made my house feel bigger than it was. It connected me to so many people around the world. Miss Pursuit has connected me to people around the world when I couldn't travel around the world and I didn't have that opportunity. And even without COVID, so many people don't have the means to be able to travel, a nationwide hunt and go clear across the country to hunt, or go to Canada or go to New Zealand. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, but these conversations bring that into your car, brings these people into your life where you connect on a different level. And so it just inspires me.
Absolutely. So Amy, I want to know what you have coming up. What is 2021 going to be for you?
2021 has already been a little bit exciting. We've had a couple of great hunts already this year that have been very fun. I had a great one this weekend with 14 people goose hunting, going back again this coming weekend. I've just been able to connect with a whole lot of people in 2020 that has made 2021 really exciting. But Her Wild Outdoors is going to now go from every other week to every week. I'm excited about where that's going. It's going to be it's going to continue with the stories of women in our community, but it's going to kind of stretch into some topical conversations too. So I'm excited to where that's going. I'm excited to see and connect with women and men who are lifting our female hunting community up. But also just talk to regular women because that's who I relate to. And
I know you're so good at it. It is your gift that God has given you. I mean, we all talk about, I think the Lord put something in you that, and you're using the tool that was gifted to you. And I love it. I love you. I'm excited to see Her Wild Outdoors, and it's been fabulous up to now. And I just know it will continue to be fabulous.
Thank you. I think most people, when they meet me in person, I'm a very personable person. I love talking one-on-one or in small groups, but in a big, huge space, I'm actually a little bit more introverted than people think. And so it's exciting to meet people in small groups. It's exciting to, have lunch with somebody or have a conversation over the phone. But I think that it would surprise people to know that if we got into a big, huge crowd, I'm the observer. I'm the one who will kind of quiet down and take everything in, and then love to connect with somebody on the side. So this is my jam. It's my peanut butter and jelly. It sure
is. It sure is.
Yeah. But what is Miss Pursuit going to be up to this year?
Well, we have a few things going on. Well, we have a ton of things going on, but I'm going to summarize. So one thing that Katherine has been working on are monthly guides. And so she put together a Google form. She sent them to all of our team members, and she's like, what knives? What knife do y'all all use? What is your must have? What conservation groups and nonprofits? Who do y'all support? Who do you love? Who do you know is doing the best work?
Yeah.
What camo do you really actually love? What rods and reels? What are you using? What works? What lessons have you learned? What footwear? What boots do you wear when you hike? So she has these guides that are monthly guides. We have one coming out each month that are just a way of, here's everything. Here's one post, and these are what our team loves, uses, wears, and swears by. And
that's going to be
really
awesome.
Love that. And it not only is a great resource, but it's just that I hate it when people say one-stop shop because that's just so lame, but it is a one-stop shop for knives. It's a one-stop shop for footwear. It's a one-stop shop for camping gear, for decoys or calls. It's a, holiday gift guide. It's these things that just give people a place.
Right. Well, in 2019, when you and I had a conversation, I was like, why did you start Miss Pursuit? Why did you write this online book for women to be able to anybody to go on and find those, the beginnings, the foundations of hunting especially. And you responded back to me because I couldn't find it in one place. I couldn't find the information that I needed. And so you have stuck with that. You've been consistent with that. throughout all of Miss Pursuit is just being a place that somebody can come to and learn and grow and to offer information to create success in their outdoor living. And so you're just continuing on with that and growing that and making it something even better. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so hard. It's just not easy.
No.
But between you and our writers and Katherine and family, and it's so hard, but it is so worth it. And it has just changed my life. And, I said this to y'all at the beginning of the show before we started, but I really did. I mean, this was my journey. I wanted people to know my journey, and it's so not about that anymore.
Yeah.
It's about your journey, and it's about Katherine, who has never hunted, and she has read these girls' posts, and she has listened to their stories, and now she wants to get out. And it is about, the girl that DMs me that says, I'm new to hunting. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what to do. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it
makes it worth it.
It's about y'all.
Yeah.
It's so about y'all. And, I have only child syndrome, which is what my family always tells me, because it's all about me and I know nothing else. And this has just been such a cool thing to see something be big.
Yeah.
Outside of me, because this has not been about my journey at all.
No, it's been growing your
really
family.
Cool.
It's been growing your family. It's been growing it outside.
Been so cool.
And it's kind of like you said, it's hard. It's not what you hear on the podcast, what you read in the blogs, what you see in the company. You see the surface. You don't see the iceberg of heartache, of what has worked, what hasn't worked, the stumbling blocks getting there. It's an uphill climb the whole way, but getting that one response of thank you. This has made a difference. It makes all of that is kind of like labor. You kind of forget for the moment, you kind of forget that the hard work that has gotten you there, the tough times that have gotten you there in that one single moment. And then it's like, okay, back to work, back to pushing through, back to shouldering the difficult parts of it. It's shouldering the negativity that we do receive. It's shouldering and holding it on our backs. But when you are connected with other women, you're not shouldering it alone. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Well, thank you. I said I wasn't going to cry again. Oh my gosh.
They can't keep you from it.
I know, I just can't stop. But I also wanted to let y'all know we are, I guess 2 years ago, we launched an ebook. It was pretty short. It was great. But we have been working very hard on relaunching it. And I think that will come probably in April.
Awesome.
But it is, I think it's like 96 pages. It is like packed full. And I want to say it is mostly for new hunters. However, I hope that someone who is intermediate or advanced will also find value in it. It definitely has a ton of fundamentals that, again, are my journey of having to learn those little, to most people, probably silly and stupid things, but that I did not know. But we weave in so much content from the team. I mean, from guns and archery to what's the difference in a lease and a ranch, which are things that I was like, I don't know, to best gear. I mean, I think there are like 20 pages on gear, and I think that is one of the huge fundamentals between women hunters and men hunters is just gear.
Yeah.
Because gear is so hard, but we have Hunter's View, we have Girls with Guns, we have Amanda Lynn Mayhew, we have our team of writers. Like, we have some really badass content in it that I hope adds a lot of value to someone. We've added in at Katherine's recommendation, but checklists and things like that you can print it and, kind of almost have like a little booklet where you can maybe write and take some notes.
That's awesome.
So I'm really hoping that adds value to people.
Oh, 100%. And whether you're a new hunter or an experienced hunter, you are either going to be learning or you're going to be teaching, right? It's going to, you should be, if you are in the community that we are in, you should either be learning or teaching or both at the same time. And so this is something that you can use either for yourself or learning yourself how to teach somebody else. And so again, we can pull from a whole lot of different things in our own relatable way. And this sounds like something that can stretch across the whole gamut of the type of hunter you are.
Well, we hope so. That is the goal.
Yes.
Katherine and I have worked very, very hard on it.
Yes.
And we hope that brings value to all of our readers. We have an open call for contributors. So we are always looking for awesome women who are fierce and knowledgeable
and authentic.
Or women who may not be knowledgeable, but are learning and want to share the things that they are learning in their journey as a new hunter, or a new angler, or a new woman who is trying to get her kids outside. So we are doing an open call. We have a great team, but always looking for that fresh, fierce voice to share their knowledge and expertise and their stories. And we're thinking about possibly doing a little merchandise this spring to kind of see, maybe create some pretty cool like iPhone covers or jewelry and just kind of see if we can provide value that way to our audience.
That's awesome. I think that the one thing that we can take away from Miss Pursuit this year, and what I have taken away from Miss Pursuit this year, is that no matter your level of experience in the outdoors, you have a voice. And it doesn't matter. You don't need to downplay that. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to, well, I've only been hunting 2 years, so I might not have something to contribute. You have a voice. You have a story to tell. You yourself, in the place where you are, have value. And it is very important to get that out there. So like you said, you've got an open call for contributors, no matter your expertise level, because you yourself have something to give to our community. So don't hesitate. And honestly, as women in our community, you're a valuable commodity. There aren't as many of us as it kind of feels like sometimes. And so you are somebody that adds value to our community. So reach out and don't downplay your value. We want to encourage that.
I love that. You worded that absolutely perfect. And, I do that. I'm like, oh, well, I've only been hunting 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I'm new. I do that to myself a lot. But I also want people to know, I definitely do downplay. And sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I have Miss Pursuit. Surely people must think like I'm this incredible hunter and like I'm traveling the world hunting all the time. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm a very normal,
Yeah.
and very probably not advanced and maybe not intermediate. I don't know, however you want to classify me, but I also want people to know like I'm really not as awesome as the Miss Pursuit team is. They're the ones that really make it awesome and knowledgeable. And, I am. I'm just kind of a normal old girl.
But see, that is, in saying that, it's humble and it's modest, but at the same time, there's only 2 or 3% of people out there that have the expertise level. So I can't relate to those women out there. I can relate to the people who are just getting started. I can relate to the people who might have more experience in deer hunting or whitetail hunting than bear hunting, but I still want to know about bear hunting. So I think that authenticity and honesty in who you are brings so much more to the table than somebody who's pretending to know everything. I would rather say, hey, I know a heck of a lot about whitetail. There's still a whole lot for me to learn, but I know a heck of a lot. But hey, you know more about bear hunting, so can I pick your brain? Or can I read your blogs? Or can I... And it's just that give and take. And so you stand by the honesty of, I might not know everything, but I'm teachable and I want to learn. And, let me help out with this, or let me just listen and learn so that I can become better at what I do. So there's value in that. Yeah.
You word everything so good. I can't decide if I can't stand it because you are so perfect or I love it. But,
definitely
you just
not
word
perfect.
everything so eloquently.
My kids can probably tell you that.
Oh my gosh, you word everything perfect. I wish I need to take your mind and put it in mine so I can say things. The way that you do.
Well, I'm excited to see where this year is going for you guys. I'm excited to keep up with you. I am sad to be taking a step back from hosting the podcast of Miss Pursuit, but I still count myself as a part of your tribe. And I don't think that will ever go away.
Oh, we hope not. I think we're going to take a couple months of a break. Mm-hmm. We're going to regroup. We're going to get ourselves organized because guess what? We've never hosted a podcast.
I believe in you.
And we are going to put a lot of time into getting great guests and great content.
Awesome.
Katherine is helping take the lead on that. And then I think we should start back up probably late summer or early fall.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to be a subscriber and listener and take in everything that you guys have ahead of you. Everything you touch is gold, both of you. You put so much into it and so much heart. And I'm excited to see where Miss Pursuit's going this year.
Well, thank you so much. We love you,
Amy.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you guys make sure you go check out Miss Pursuit, go online, read the blogs, check out all of the contributors, Carly, Katherine. You guys just go support this group of women who their heart is out there for you. So there's nothing but love and support coming from me. So thank you guys for joining me.
And follow Her Wild Outdoors.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, we love you. And thank you so much for having us, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you.